According to a recent study around retirement, nearly two-thirds of Americans are more afraid of running out of money than of actually dying. And as Americans approach retirement, they face new challenges that previous generations didn't have to consider. Here to talk about this is Rick Orred. He's founder and owner of Orred Financial Partners in Wilmar, Minnesota. What are some of the factors influencing all this fear of running out of money, Rick?
Well, great question. And what we're seeing in the industry, or what we're seeing, with clients coming in, is fewer and fewer people having pensions. I have folks that are retired in the medical community, or in the teachers or the law enforcement area, that have solid pensions. And one thing we're seeing that's really on people's minds today is, hey, Rick, I don't have a pension. And so what does that mean? Well, when a person doesn't have a pension, then that puts a great deal of pressure on those assets in order to perform, going through times of market movements, both up and down. We got inflation and, planned obsolescence, technological change, all these variables, and income taxes and estate taxes and those types of things. So I think it's real forefront on people's minds when they don't have a pension. They ask me, they say, well, Rick, I've got a certain amount of assets, what am I going to do? And how do I make them last? Well, then I go into a question, it's like, well, how long are you going to live? And when they can't give me a definitive answer, then obviously that dialogue goes into more of a, hey, they've got to last forever, whatever that forever means. And so a lot of what we do is very educational, of helping people, so-called climb down the mountain safely, or come down through their distribution phase of their life, because they're not accumulating money anymore. And now they have to make that money last for whether it's 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, or 30 years. And so, we're marrying different industries together, whether that's the investment world as well as the actuarial science or the insurance world, to in essence create that pension, that people don't have, the majority of people don't have, and we're able to do that.
So how do rising healthcare costs factor into retirement security, and what can retirees do to prepare for these expenses?
Great question. I think the majority of it is, and I'm going to go back to this, is because it's all about creating the first thing is income, liquidity, and legacy. And I'm going back to that because why do you work? Why do we work? Why do I work? It's to ultimately have an income in retirement. And to address the healthcare question, obviously those healthcare costs are ever changing. Usually, for the most part, they're going up. And so what does that take? It takes more money. So when you're trying to accumulate a big portion of money, even a bigger question is, hey, how am I going to distribute that? Or how am I going to get that money out of my 401k or my IRA or my non-qualified account? Well, you have to maximize the income stream because, frankly, we don't know what those healthcare costs are going to be. But we have to have maximum income in retirement in order to cover those and to cover them sometimes potentially for 20 to 25 to 30 years. And so it kind of goes against the grain with the typical traditional financial planning methodology, is that when people get to be, say, 65, they say, well, I got to get my assets that are very, very conservative. Well, I beg to differ, because a lot of times, people are living, 20 to 30 years in retirement, and with the inflation that we're at right now, it's going to eat their lunch. It's going to eat all their gain.
Now, going back to income, is the 4% rule still relevant?
Well, it's a great question. I get asked that a lot. Interesting. It was a Bill Bengen study done in 1991, and we're at 2025. That theory, or that basis of hey, is a 4% rule okay? Well, it doesn't come into account with investment management fees or taxes or inflation or those types of things. And that's, I'm going to go back to one thing that I said earlier, was this: if there's one thing that's guaranteed to happen in life, is change. don't ever put yourself into a position where you don't have the ability to adapt to that change. You know, if you take a look at financial planning of today, that number is more like, you know, 2 to 2.25. With you've got inflation, you've got taxes, you've got advisory fees, you know, excessive advisory fees, and so all that comes into play. So, you know, I mean, the math is pretty easy on $1 million at 2.25. Well, that's not that's not enough money, you know, for somebody to retire comfortably. And they thought, wow, I've got $1 million out there. Well, it maybe isn't enough money because, you know, if we have a 4% withdrawal rate and I have a 20% chance that I'm going to run out of money, well, we can't do that in our book because we don't know when we're going to ultimately pass away. And we've got to make sure that our money lasts, you know, as long or longer than we do. So, you know, 4% is it's kind of I hate to use the rule of thumb, but ultimately that's what the financial pundits say is a rule of thumb. Well, I don't think that's a good rule. I think you got to have maximum amount of money and maximum amount of guaranteed income that you can have in retirement. That's guaranteed. And what our objective is to shoot for something much higher than that because we don't know what the market's going to do. Yeah, we've had, you know, a couple of years where the markets have done very, very well, but that could easily change and, you know, take somebody out at the knees, and we can't have that.
My guest has been Rick Orred in Wilmar, Minnesota. Thanks for watching Retirement News Online.